3CS HQ, we're going to do a demo of doing a Heat3D survey. So I've already got my equipment set up here. I've got my air and reflective targets up against an external wall. I've got my heater and temperature controller set up. I've set the temperature on the temperature controller. Let's adjust it to be the same temperature as it is inside. So we're going to hold the temperature steady throughout the time-lapse survey. I'm going to move my heater so it's in direct view of the air target. And I've got my device set up here, charging both the phone and the thermal camera at the same time, using my splitter, ready to go, set up on my tripod so I've got a stable measurement location. Now I'm going to pick up the phone and start doing the survey. Going to switch on screen recording so we can inlay that and see what's happening on the screen at the same time. Here we go. So I open up the Heat3D app and select that I'm going to do a time lapse. That's the function we use to do a U-value measurement. And the app opens up. Switch the camera on so we can take thermal images. We need a flashing green light on this camera to show that it's live and working. So the first stage is to scan the 3D model of the room. What we're doing is measuring U values. We're not trying to get an accurate to the millimeter 3D model of the room. So we don't need to be too fastidious about getting this model exactly right. We just want a rough model of the room. So the first thing I do is point it at the floor and scan the floor. That gives me the floor plane that I'll build my model up from. And then I'm going to point into each corner of the room, and that makes my basic floor plan. As I said, don't need to be too precise about this. Just get the floor plan roughly mapped out. When you bring it to the last corner, it will snap together. We can use these grab handles on the screen to adjust the model of the room if I haven't got it quite in the corners. And then if we point to the middle of a wall, we can pull up the model to be at ceiling height. We can hear the camera working away there to calibrate. That's an important step before we can start the survey. Okay, some moments later, the camera's now calibrated and we can move on to the next step in the survey. So we press the arrow in the bottom right to say next, and now I'm ready to start taking my thermal images. I want to get my first thermal image including the targets, and then I can measure across the whole wall surface. You'll see it's pretty warm in here. It's actually the middle of summer and we're just giving a bit of a demo of how the equipment works. So I can do thermal images across the whole wall surface. Done, and now I've got an infrared map of the whole wall surface and my two targets that have been automatically identified. If I press next, I can start seeing surface temperatures. The next step will be to put my device on the tripod, ready for the time lapse. So I put it into the quick release, just adjust to make sure I can see the targets, and then press the white camera button in the bottom left to start the time lapse. App checks it can see everything it needs to. We're good to go here. So I press the red one to say start the time lapse. It'll do a countdown. At this point, we leave the room so that the temperature can be held really stable by the temperature controller, and the time lapse will run for a minimum of 45 minutes, and it will automatically detect if it's getting stable conditions. If it gets stable conditions, your measurement will finish after 45 minutes. You'll have the U value of the whole wall surface. If you have unstable conditions, then the survey will automatically extend until it gets a period of stable conditions from which it can accurately assess the U value. So 45 minutes later, we have the results for this wall.